Hello, universe. Welcome to Pickathon Podcast, episode 17. I am your host, Zale Schoenborn. I'm actually out at the farm, at Pendarvis Farm, where I'm the founder of a Pickathon music festival here. And today we're going to get into some discovery. We're going to have a wonderful music guest here in a little bit, Matt Stubbs from GA-20. Just an awesome band. Blues band, however you want to say it. Bands kind of trend. When they're just good, it's just good. Let's just call it good. And so the energy here is crazy. We are less than a week away from the festival, I guess. Now it's Friday. It starts next Thursday. I think this will come out post. Can't tell you how kind of crazy this like adult summer camp place is for all these creative types and making this place come to life. It's an absolute joy to be around this team and these people, and we're just getting started. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which it is the week before, things are happening like crazy. All these architects design builds coming together, making just magic. It's insane what is happening here. And I know, folks, that we always say it, but you don't understand unless you've been. And it's freaking true. You hopefully you have been, and you're like shaking your head, going, "Yeah, I was there. That was awesome." Yeah, so what's interesting about, for me, thinking on, GA-20 is one of the things that Pickathon we always do and is kind of important in our world is we are kind of going the essence of music scenes. And a lot of times, a lot of music is crossing over and kind of blending things in like a lot of worlds. But there's these great music worlds still exist and are recognizable, either regional or just national. Blues, bluegrass, old time, Irish. I am a mandolin player that plays, from Kentucky, and literally learned to play mandolin down in North Carolina. And one of the things that I just loved is I wanted to learn to be kind of the most awesome bluegrass, and then kind of got really into old time. And when you're playing those styles, there's a whole reverence for what that style is, and you can be inventive, but you're actually in that style, and it's a weird thing because there's a lot of kind of weird style police in these worlds, like that it's not pure enough, it has to be a certain way for it to actually be in the club, which I am not a fan of. I think that kind of actually snuffs out the scenes, because who wants to kind of, if they're not creating and if they're not thinking and they're not making something amazing that they're passionate about, it's okay to be like a cover band, but it's a whole nother thing when you're just like, you're in it and you're feeling this music. And so those traditional styles really can work and can breathe and be their own thing. And I am a huge fan of that being part of today's music discord. Blues is no different, really. It's just kind of this. It's what's incredible, and we'll get into here today. Is sometimes you get styles and bands that can kind of really be covering but they transcend at the same time. And I always think it's a combination of just you're making the music, you're feeling the music, you're making people believe it. And so hats off to all the traditional music worlds out there, regional music worlds, hardcore worlds of any site, because that's what makes the world interesting. Don't think it's like there's not that many people into it, because places like Pickathon is where we kind of put together somebody that's just on playing a stadium or the Grammys next to somebody else. And every once in a while you get crazy things happening, like Billy Strings, who's now playing he's a small kid, bluegrass player from Michigan. Now he's playing stadiums. So, and it happens in all styles. Tyler, blues, we don't have to go into that, but I'm just saying hats off, keep up. And with that, I'd like to kind of let's get into this conversation. Let me invite my guest today, Matt Stubbs from GA-20. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, you guys grew up in Boston? Is that where you grew up?
We grew up in New England. The band, when we formed the band, we were all living in Boston at the time. That was in 2018.
Where in New England?
I grew up in southern New Hampshire as a kid, and then went to school in Boston, moved to LA for a few years, and then moved back and was in Boston for about I don't know, 12 years, I guess, 15 years. And then I moved to Providence, Rhode Island a few years ago. But the band was started in Boston.
Nice. What is it like where you grew up? What was the music scene there?
Well, I grew up in a small town in southern New Hampshire. So there wasn't really any music in my town. But my father's a musician, also a guitarist. So when I started to get into blues and just guitar in general, he introduced me to all kinds of blues music and early rock and roll, and then would take me out. Each weekend we'd go find local bands and touring bands, and we would just go to shows every weekend. So it was good. I mean, we would look for it and drive and go find artists we want to see live.
That's cool. Were you actually playing with your dad?
Yeah, I joined his band. I started guitar when I was 13, and I think I joined his band when I was 15 or 16, 15, and was in his band for a couple of years, and then ended up going to college, and then started my own band after that.
You also have played in with Charlie Musselwhite, right?
Yeah, I still play with Charlie. His tour schedule has slowed down a little bit, but I've been with him for 16 years now.
Is he from out there?
No, he's when I joined the band, he was living in California.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's moved back to Mississippi. He lives in Clarksdale now.
So you grew up in this kind of universe of like your dad must have been into blues too, right?
Very much so. Yep.
It's cool. Like, is there like a regional scene of blues in like New England? Is that like a?
It's slowed down now. When I was coming up, yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of touring musicians that lived in Rhode Island or New England. They would tour out of there, like bands like Roomful of Blues and Duke Robillard and Ronnie Earl, Luther Guitar, Junior Johnson. So they were around, but also it was it's a big stop on, or was anyway, when touring bands would go through New England. They would go New York, Boston, or Boston area, but it slowed down. There's not a ton of blues clubs there anymore.
I was thinking, is like there a regional style of blues in New England, and would you think there is?
No, I mean I don't think so. You know what I mean? I think they're probably grabbing from different areas of blues, and influence from that. Like I don't think there's a Boston style of blues. No.
I'm wondering. Yeah,
I don't think so.
I mean, sometimes somebody's so influential, right? They just kind of like making something up, right?
Right.
What would you say, like this? Like, what do you think the dominant style of that world is? Is it Chicago? Is it kind of Southern, or is it a mashup?
In Boston, you mean?
Yeah,
it's really a mix. I don't think there is one. I mean, I think there's acoustic players that are playing Delta stuff. There's guys like Duke Robillard that is kind of a chameleon, playing everything from swing and jazzy stuff to Chicago blues.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't put my finger on it.
So tell me, like, where did you meet? You met your partner in the band is Pat Faherty, right?
Yep.
How did you guys meet?
So I knew Pat for a few years before we started the band. He started coming out. When I wasn't on tour with Charlie, I had an instrumental, kind of like a psych rock instrumental band called the Antiguas. And
nice.
He started coming to those shows, and he was just really kind of getting into traditional blues. He was in other styles before that. And I also would just be a sideman playing gigs with other blues artists at the time. So he started coming around all the shows and asking me about blues and digging in. And so that's how we met originally. And then in 2018, Charlie made a record with Ben Harper and was going out with Ben Harper's band. So I was looking at about a year off, and I don't have a job. I just play music. So that was when I mentioned to Pat, maybe we just start a little trio and just, a working band, just take as many gigs as we can. And it was basically just to pay bills. So when we started, it was him and I, and we used different drummers. We were just playing really quiet. I mean, it's kind of morphed and changed. Now we're a pretty loud band, but when we started, we were just playing little amps, mostly just traditional Chicago blues, like 50 Chicago blues.
Mm-hmm.
And within that year, we wrote some tunes. We went in just to make like a EP, and it came out pretty good. So I sent it to a couple labels, and that's when we signed up with Coal Mine Records. So our debut record came out in 2019, and we've been with them ever since.
Yeah, I mean, your early EP, was that Nagging on My Mind?
It ended up being an LP, yeah. We recorded, I think, with 6 tunes, and Coal Mine wanted to pick it up, so we went back in and recorded another 4 or 5, I think. I think we had actually 12 tunes, but 10 made the record. So yeah, Lonely Soul.
Oh yeah,
was the
such
record.
A good tune. Where is Coal Mine from?
They're just out of Cincinnati, in a town called Loveland, Ohio.
Oh my goodness, my hometown. I'm from Northern Kentucky. I totally forgot that. Yes, the legendary King Records is my other kind of Cincinnati.
That's right. Yep. Totally.
Claim to fame. That's cool. So did you guys meet in Was it like not you were just out on the town, like you didn't meet in school or anything like that, or?
No, I think the first time I met Pat, I was hosting a blues jam where you're the house band and then people can sit in, and he was one of the jammers. He came up and he had some questions for me, and I actually think he took a couple lessons from me. We wanted to like learn more about traditional blues, what to listen to. So he took a couple lessons. That was probably 2015, I think, when I first met him.
One of the things that really strikes me about your music is its vitality. Like, blues is one of these things where I think a lot of people don't do it service. Like that, it's almost like they're kind of covering somebody they like rather than kind of playing music that's theirs.
Right.
And I feel like what you guys are doing is different. It's you guys are playing music that's you. That's I mean it's in the same world, and actually it's like it's just a great example of like you have a lot of influences, but it's blues,
Right.
and it's vital. It's like a great record, and it really kind of, for me, is like one of those things where this genre got better because you guys were putting out music, and I love that because so you could think, oh, this music's tired, it's over, right? A lot of young people don't give it a shot like that.
Yeah, I mean, I never would think blues is tired, but I listen to traditional blues, and I think it's a timeless style. I mean, modern blues, I guess we're considered modern blues because we're in 2023 playing blues. But in the blues scene these days, the modern scene, I feel like when we're not playing a music fest, like just an all-around music fest or a roots fest, but we're playing a blues fest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I've been with Charlie for 16 years, and before that, I was a sideman with other touring acts. So I've played a lot of blues festivals over the years, and the thing I noticed is, modern blues is kind of morphed into this thing where it almost feels like classic rock, but without the hits. It's like all platform. it's like, and I love classic rock, but it's like
I do.
Yeah, it's like, and everything, not everything, but a lot of the acts that I see, it seems like the entire set or the song is a platform just to get to the guitar solo. It's not a song. It's not. It's just a bed for a guitar solo. I've never been into that. Like, I'm not into shredding. I can't play fast. I've always been into like 50s and 60s, maybe pushing like the early 70s blues. But all the players I liked were they left space. They had phrasing. It was very soulful, and also usually tell a story. Not like country music. So
right.
When we started this band, we put out, I think we've got 4 LPs out now. But the first one, Lonely Soul, I mean, some songs don't have a solo. Most of the songs are under 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes.
Classic.
It's more about an album and creating a vibe, and then like from the technical standpoint, producing the record to have, I don't want to say vintage, but a timeless sound. Another thing I think a lot of modern blues records sonically don't really do it for me anyway.
Yeah. I think they're kind of like trying to hit something that they heard, like that's, and they're good at the guitar and
right.
And putting together kind of the singing, the band, the songwriting, and the vocals. I have to say Pat's an incredible singer too. And I mean, it's singing is the center part, which goes deep in you, grabs you, right? Pulls out. Pulls out that emotion, which is, and along with the instrumentation, but it's cool. Like I constantly introduce your record to people, and they walk away thinking, God, I didn't think I really liked blues anymore. I just thought that what I mean? That style of blues, especially because the folk finger picking kind of or electric kind of Mississippi mud, that's a real primal style of blues too. That really, I think Chicago blues was always like that too. But you guys are bringing that primal part back to it,
Cool.
I feel it.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is you guys don't have a bass player. And so like I actually didn't do a ton of homework here, but what's the history of 2 guitars and a drum in blues bands?
Well, we did it just for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason when we started, we wanted to keep it as a trio, real lean, to make money. You know what I mean? Like we were like I said, we were a working band. So that was when we first started, there was a harmonica player involved. It was going to be 2 guitars and harmonica, and we messed around with it, and I missed having the drums. So we got a drummer in there, and then the harmonica player had other commitments, so he only did a few gigs. So it ended up being just a trio. And but historically, blues, there's been a lot of examples of Chicago blues that didn't have bass players. I don't even think they realize it when they listen to the record, because, you know, they're older sounding records with not a ton of low ends sometimes, so they don't realize that it's a guitar playing the bass line. Like Hound Dog Taylor, no bass, two guitars. A lot of Little Walter tunes don't have bass, it's two guitars. There's a lot of records like that. Jimmy Reed. So when we started, we kind of just picked material before we started writing that was either that or would fit without having bass, you know. And then when we started recording, I produced the records. It's, you know, you mix in a way and arrange things in a way, so hopefully you're not missing it. You know what I mean? I mean, one of us are always playing a bass line, but it's on guitar.
It's cool. No, I actually didn't even know till I was kind of looking at. I was doing my research, and I was like, I usually miss bass. I know. I mean, it's like a weird thing, like, you know, that, and I don't even know. I didn't even think of it. It's so cool that you guys absolutely made that second guitar fill that space, you know. And you know, speaking of the, you guys did that record of, was it Hound? It was Hound Dog, right? Hound Dog Taylor.
Yeah, try it. You might like it. GA-20 does. Hound Dog is the long extended name. Yep.
What's your connection to him? Just appreciation? Like, how would you describe him?
Well, for instance, it's very similar instrumentation, and it's Chicago blues. It was a guy that we all liked. The way that record came about was just kind of a fluke. We were never looking to make a tribute record or be anything like that. But during COVID, back up before COVID, when we signed with Coal Mine around that time, we sent our record to two labels. It was Coal Mine and then this blues label called Alligator Records out of Chicago, which is still around, and they're like, you know, they're independent. They're like one of the more historic,
legendary.
I don't want to say modern. They started in '71. Anyway, we sent their record to us. They passed on us. At the time, they said it was too, which I thought was kind of funny. They said it was too raw. You know, the record was too raw, which is crazy. Because Alligator, they started Alligator for Hound Dog. The owner, Bruce, was kind of managing Hound Dog at the time, and no label would sign Hound Dog. So Bruce started the label for Hound Dog, and then Alligator Records became a thing and it's still around. So they passed on us in 2018, no problem. And then 2019 we were touring, and Bruce, the owner, came out and saw the band and liked it live, I guess. And when COVID hit, I got an email. So now it's 2020, and Bruce was interested in signing the band. He's like, after seeing it, I get it now. You know, I'd like you to put a record out with, you know, Alligator. Are you interested? And I said, well, you know, I was, you know, it was nice that he wanted the band and everything, but we were already with Coal Mine. Right. But we were stuck at home, and we had a record already done. So Lonely Soul was out. Our next record, Crackdown, was recorded, ready to go, but we were holding off releasing it just because we didn't want to be able to tour behind it. And like everyone at that time, you didn't know what the future, how long we were going to be at home. Mm-hmm. So I came up with the idea. I talked to Coal Mine, the owner of Coal Mine, before I emailed Bruce back, and I said, how do you feel about this upcoming year is the 50th anniversary of Hound Dog Taylor's first record, and it's the 50th anniversary of Alligator. What do you think about talking to Alligator about doing a tribute record to Hound Dog, and we'll work out so we can come out on both labels, you know, like a co-release, I guess. Yeah. And so Coal Mine loved it because, like I said, Alligator's very historic blues label, and Coal Mine is more of a soul label. We're the only blues act on their roster. Yeah. Mostly soul bands or kind of
Duran
indie.
Jones.
Yeah. Duran was on there. Yep. So I pitched it to Alligator, and at first, you know, Bruce had never done anything like that. He wasn't sure how it would work financially for everybody. Mm-hmm. But we figured that out, and then so we went in and recorded it. We took a couple months just to work the material once a week. We were rehearsing out on my deck because that was before we get together again.
COVID.
And I ended up building a studio at my house to do the project, and so all that happened in July, and then in November we went in to record it.
In 2020?
This is 2020, yep. And then it came out in 2021. So That's the
Yeah.
story behind it. It was not planned, but we love Hound Dog, and there's a connection there just because of, I think, our love for Chicago blues and instrumentation and whatnot. So yeah, it was nice.
Alligator is, yeah, it's one of those legendary. I always think of Arhoolie too, down south there,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like just kind of some of the rawest, coolest stuff I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Kind of they captured, and that's like that primal kind of connection. A lot of times in music I play, there's like I always think of these modal tunes or these like primal type tunes, but what you guys are. That style of two guitars and a drum really has kind of this driving primal feel. I didn't think of that as kind of a central part of your guys' sound that makes it different, but I think it is.
Yeah, I mean, blues. I like I said earlier, I feel more of a connection to traditional blues and raw blues and
Yeah.
early rock and roll and country music. And same thing with soul music. I tend to gravitate towards the more raw type stuff,
Yeah.
but also not super complicated. Like I said, I've never playing a lot of notes and filling a lot of space just to do it like for sport has never been something that I
notes per minute.
Yeah, right.
No, it's like grit and soul. Like it's if it's got one or both of those, I'm down. Right.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
You need something in there to kind of pull you in.
Totally.
So how do you guys write music? How do you guys approach writing a record? Like
Our past records, it's been kind of one of us, Pat or I, will come up with a very, very rough idea. I mean, I don't write too many lyrics. Sometimes I'll come up with like a hook, a line, but I'm not really a lyricist. But often I'll come up with a concept or a vibe or a chord progression or a riff, send it to him. He'll work on it, kind of go back and forth just with voice memos. And then when it seems like we have something that we can arrange, the three of us will get together and work it up. And then usually we try in the past. This next record I think is going to be a little bit different because we're on the road so much we don't have time to rehearse. But all the other ones we usually rehearse it up and then just take it on the road and see how if it gets over live. And if it gets over live, it gets on the list to go into the studio.
That's cool. And so is it kind of like whoever is kind of on fire with or bringing ideas to a session and you guys kind of just hash it out over time?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, all right, time to write some songs, and then we share the idea, and usually, a good percentage of them make it. Oftentimes they don't, but just depends,
It's cool, on Crackdown. One of the things I really just appreciate about that record too is the space between the songs. You're playing blues chords and such, but there's the structures, the hooks, the courses. There's a lot of difference all throughout that record. You guys are coming from a lot of different angles.
That one, Crackdown, I mean, Lonely Soul, and then the Hound Dog tribute record were straight, in my mind, straight blues. There wasn't too much other things. I mean, a little bit of rock and roll, I guess, but it's blues.
Right.
Crackdown, we were, letting out some other influences. I consider it traditional music, but other traditional influences to kind of come in there and still make a blues record. But like the song "Fair Weather Friend" is more. I mean, it's like kind of like a rock and roll kind of garage rock and roll type vibe, and then "Dry Run" has a little bit of a country vibe to it. So, and there's some other rock and roll,
even a bit of a soul, even a tad bit of soul in that.
Yeah. And then kind of tied together with the production, with the sonics when we're mixing and stuff, and how we recorded it. We recorded it at the same studio as Lonely Soul, and all our stuff to date we're always in the studio together, live performing it. We're not like putting down tracks like drums to a click, and, layering it. It's all what you hear. There's Crackdown has a couple little overdubs, but mostly 95% of it is amps and drums in a room with there's lots of bleed.
Love it. Which is really cool thing too. And hard, and a lot of folks don't approach recording that way, right? They try to kind of layer it. But you guys are truly a live band. Like right? That's
totally.
That's the strength. And do the songs change night to night occasionally? Do you mix it up in any way?
Yeah, I mean, some songs are set, if it's a part or whatever, but in some solos, we play a lot of gigs. So some solos, I think you figure out what works, and there's certain things
Break
that are
it
there.
Down.
But but if I recorded my solo to every song every night, I don't think any of them are. They're always a little,
Yeah, totally. And it's cool because I think if I look at your records, I mean, you couldn't have had more success, right? I mean, you've had a couple, the last three have debuted on number one on the Billboard Blues, right?
We got. Let me think about this. Lonely Soul was actually number 2, and then we put a live EP out in between Lonely Soul and the Hound Dog one. That was number 1. Hound Dog was number 1. Crackdown was number 1, and then we just put out a live record a few months after.
Yeah.
That was number 2. So I guess it's 3 number 1s and 2 number 2s. But I would have liked them all to be number 1. But it's I never thought I could say I had a number 1 Billboard.
I don't know. How does that feel?
I mean, awesome. The first one was number 2. I wasn't expecting anything, and I got a call from, I think our booking agent was the first one to call me. He was like, "Dude, you're because I'm not like you have to have like pay a thing to see Billboard or whatever." And so I don't have that. But he called me. He was like, "Dude, I think you're number 1 or 2 tomorrow." So that was pretty. Now it's like, we make records that we want to listen to, but it is nice when you get up high on the Billboard stuff because that's sales. That's people like buying the record.
Yeah, and I mean, is a big part? Are you getting more from that side of it, or is it mostly on the live side still? Like, do you see in like the blues community kind of? Is there enough like record sales in that world that are it's getting good?
Yeah, I think we do pretty good for record sales. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but the label keeps letting us make records with them, so that's we're probably doing okay. And then we work a lot, like we're constantly on tour, so we sell albums at shows. You know what I mean? So that helps.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys tour how many days a year? Would you say you guys tour in?
I don't even know. This year we're probably going to do 150 or 160 gigs, but those are the gigs, and then there's travel days all around that. So we're gone well into the 200s,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My wife recently saw you down in Tampa in some WMNF.
Oh yeah.
Their little benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool radio station like that. They'll play totally modern, totally old, totally. I mean, just like those kind of class. I mean, one of the places where blues lives is kind of like community radio stations, right? Like there's those, because it's like hard in those scenes. The commercial radio, it doesn't really. They just don't have any oxygen. It's not Drake, right? It's
right.
But I bet you like Sirius X, like some of the satellite, has that been pretty useful? Like we for
the most part we've been. A couple other stations have played us, but Bluesville, obviously, because we're a blues band, have been insanely supportive. Like I kind of see like the playlist, and it seems like in the last 6 months they're playing us 4 or 5 times a day, which is a lot. You know what I mean? To be on
it's an honor.
Yeah. And they mix it up. Like there's a lot of songs in rotation, so that's been a big help. And last time we went through DC, we went in there and did a live session, and they played that a lot. So yeah, that one's been a big when you're at the merch table at the end of the night, people are telling you how they heard about you. We hear a lot about discovering us on
Bluesville. Yeah. I mean, I think I discovered you through a local blues show.
Oh,
so
cool.
It was at which I think the same thing for some of the other styles like bluegrass that I'm in. Like it only lives on places like community radio sometimes, right?
Right.
And or Spotify. Like one of the cool things I bet is a lot of people are as bad as digital is, it's good at kind of connecting people to music they didn't know they like. So they're listening to blues, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, the playlists help with Spotify. I mean, love hate with that, but in the big picture, I mean, it has been useful. I mean, it has had lots of people come to our shows that hear it. Either whether it's an algorithm on there or it's a playlist that they follow, and then. Which is fine by me if they come by the merch table and grab an album. I don't care. I mean, that's cool. If they find out from me that way, that's cool.
Totally. I actually think it as much as the bad side of that is the payment, but the good side is it's just opened the door. Like weird music gets injected into people's feeds because it's good and it's similar, right? Somebody's listened to it, and it's almost kind of upsets things like like commercial radio,
right?
Because now you have this kind of like crowd-centered kind of version of spreading music, and it works. You guys, I'm sure tons of folks are finding you guys that way.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So have you heard of Pickathon? Have you anyone ever played that you know?
I've heard of it. You know what I mean? I've never played it personally, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people that I listen to, I've seen the sessions online, and I've played, the Northwest quite a bit through the years. So I know a lot of friends that go to it each year. Yeah.
Right on. Well, I'm actually doing a podcast in the place, right? You can kind of see this barn behind me here.
Yeah.
It's actually, I'm on the stage. I'm on the piano on the stage,
cool.
just using it. And this place will get totally decked out, but it's a tiny little barn, like, 300, 250 people. The best rock and roll venue ever.
Cool.
Like, oh, it's like fantasy. You get a room full of absolute music. Just they're there. They want it.
Yeah.
And they're the energy. That particular show, you guys one of your sets is in the Galaxy Barn.
Okay, cool.
And just circle that one. Like have your Wheaties.
Yeah.
Like that one is going to be a memorable off the hook experience. The other one at Cherry Hill is going to be just as amazing. Like, so this whole venue is kind of built into a farm instead of kind of popping up like stages and parking lots and chain link fence and the normal pop-up stages. We kind of like build stuff into the landscape. And so like none of the stages are like a normal stage. They're all pro stages, great backline, great pro crews, but there's no big truss stages. They're all like
cool.
A stage in the woods.
I saw the pictures. It looks cool.
Yeah. So I hope, I'm so confident that when you come here, that kind of like your music's is gonna super translate, and people are gonna, it often happens, and I look forward that it's happening to you guys, that the West Coast all of a sudden becomes a bigger place,
right?
A couple venues. So yeah, I couldn't be more excited, man. I'm really excited that you're coming, and appreciate you coming in and talking to me here today.
Of course, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So when do you get out to the Northwest? Are you just a couple more gigs?
Let me think about this. We're doing Fargo tomorrow, then we drive home, and then we fly to Billings, Montana the day before we play your festival. So I get there the day. The day we're doing like the session gig and the first gig.
Yep.
We were flying that day, I believe.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go on band vacation as close as you can, because it's kind of ridiculous here.
Cool.
We'll feed you, take care of you. So
awesome.
Yeah, and with that, I'm going to say thank you, everyone. This is the end of the Pickathon podcast this week, and really thanks to my guest, Matt.
Well, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys next week.
Can't wait.
Peace, everyone.
All right. Ciao. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Pickathon Podcast. This podcast is produced by Zale Schoenborn, Tanner Mercola, and Evan Throckmorton. Our artwork is by Travis Bone, and additional support by Ryan Stiles. The music in this episode was by our guest of honor, GA-20. The songs included were Sitting at Home Alone, I Let Someone In, and the one we're writing out on right now, Just Because. Thank you to the whole Pickathon family. And like Zale said, we'll catch you all next week.